have to take a layered disclosure approach. All right. So very important that. Now, this personality loves those testimonials. As I mentioned, she'll make sure you give them testimonials about your company, about your services. They could care less about whether you're a multi-million dollar producer, about how many transactions you close. They want a safe, secure, stress-free transaction. That's what they want. Safe, secure, stress-free. Okay? For S clients, they want testimonials that specifically address the smoothness of the process, the agent's reliability. Those things are very important to them. Okay? Now, S's like checklists. Okay? S's and C's both like checklists. And if you give them a checklist, they're going to follow it 100%. Okay? But you want to create what's called a success path checklist. So it not only outlines tasks, but it also includes those comfort milestones. Okay? So for example, instead of talking about a home inspection as one of the steps, you can say home inspection completed. All right. And that gives the peace of mind about the property's condition. And they know, okay, that's done. Now we can move on to the next thing. Okay. So you want to provide the success path checklist as you go. And you also want to make sure you're giving an S time to review all information. They need to review. They need to be able to ask questions without you being flustered about it, without you making them feel like you're in a hurry. Okay. There's also a technique called preview and prepare. This works really well with an S. Okay, so what you want to do when you have an S is you want to send them information 24 to 48 hours ahead of time before you meet them, so they can review all the information at their own pace. Okay, now studies show this reduces their stress by 61%. And not only does it reduce stress by 61%, it increases their confidence in the process. Okay, so if you can send them stuff ahead of time and give them time to look over that at their own pace, maybe write down a list of questions to be able to ask you, then they're more mentally prepared for that process. Okay, now with an S, you want to make them feel special. Okay. And if you make them feel special, if they trust you, they're going to send you all of their S friends. But S's typically need 3 personal conversations before they feel comfortable enough to fully engage in the process, before they trust you. Okay. And they like something called a flexible structure. Flexible structure approach. What does that mean? You need to have clear processes, but you need to build in times to be able to adapt. Okay. So in other words, leave time for the questions. Don't get behind because you tried to go too quickly from one thing to another. So if you need 60 minutes to do something, schedule 90. Leave that extra buffer there because that's going to give them the psychological space to process information without feeling like they're rushed or having to make a quick decision. Okay. Now, words that appeal to them are things like guaranteed, user-friendly, soothing, time-saving, effortless. Okay. Things like those appeal to the S personality. All right. Now let's move on to the C personality. This is the personality that you have to remember. They must analyze before making a decision. A C is not going to make a quick decision. Okay. They also are programmed to see the negative before they see the positive. You cannot get flustered by this. They're programmed to be pessimistic. So it's not against you, it's for themselves. All right. And studies show that C personality types conduct 3.7 times more research during the real estate transaction. So these are research gatherers. All right. And they're also the second personality that is methodical. They're very methodical. They'll buy a home because it had the most straight walls. They'll buy a home because of the energy efficiency. All right. They're very methodical in their approach. And they will have what's called data driven urgency. Okay. So whenever you want them to implement anything, you need to have data driven urgency. In other words, you can't just go, okay, if you want to buy, we got to go now. The market's hot. That won't work with a C. In fact, you'll get the opposite reaction because now they're skeptical. Why are you rushing me? You just want a commission. Okay. And so you have to use data driven urgency rather than making an emotional appeal. You have to use facts and data to show why they need to move quicker. Okay, by using that data. And then if you do that, then they're 76% more likely to take action. Okay, so very important. Now, you also, whenever you have a C, you want to implement the progressive documentation system. So after each discussion, here's what you want to do. You want to send a detailed email summarizing all the points that you covered, the decisions that you made, and you want to attach any supporting facts or data after every single email conversation. C's love email because they can timestamp something. They know how to make folders. They know who said what when. They can go back and look at it for reference. And so it's very important that you follow up with every conversation with an email. Okay. Now, research shows that while C clients take 3.2 times longer to make an initial decision, they're 74% less likely to have buyer's remorse and back out of the transaction. Because they did so much more research ahead of time, they move forward in confidence. Okay. Now, when a C challenges the information that you've presented, use what's called the precise response technique. Precise response, okay? You never want to get defensive or dismissive because that's just going to make them skeptical. Instead, you want to do something like this. That's an excellent observation. Let me get you the precise data on that point. Don't fly by the seat of your pants and don't wing it, because C's are going to catch you, okay? You need to make sure you're factual and you're very precise, all right? Now, these guys also like what's called a professional buffer zone. C's are very private. They don't like to talk about personal things, okay? And it may take several conversations. In fact, they have to talk to you 43% more on a professional level before they feel comfortable sharing on the personal level. Okay. And so don't jump into personal things first. Build the relationship, build the trust, and stick to business unless they talk about the personal things. Okay. So these guys are 91% more likely than other personality types to judge your overall capability, okay? And they judge that based on your punctuality, based on your ability to stick to the schedule, based on your ability to provide data and facts. They take and they have very high standards. By the way, these are the ones that no one could ever earn a 10 because no one's perfect, right? And so they have very high standards. So they're going to take all of that into account when they're judging their experience with you. All right. So lots of information, I know. Now, here's some words that the D's appeal to. The C's. Impeccable, price saving, tailored to fit your needs, guaranteed, details, okay? And so what you want to do, you want to ask yourself is, what can you do to make your customer, no matter what their personality type, to make them feel like they won? Because if you make them feel like they won, if you give them more than they expected, then that's when you're going to have win-win situations. That's when you're going to have those referrals. That's when you're going to have those loyal clients, okay? Because they're coming back to you regularly because they feel understood and they trust you, okay? Now, what I want you to do, I want you to just take a little bit of a reflection time. And I want you to think about if any of you have ever had an experience where you had a transaction where there was a struggle because you didn't work with someone's personality type. Can any of y'all share an experience where you said, yeah, you know what? I messed up and here's what I can do differently next time. Can y'all think of any specific client or customer that you had an experience with that there was a learning opportunity?